it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 571st edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell, who is not here today. Tom is out again. He's having trouble organizing his sleeping. This has been an ongoing issue, and I don't know what to make of it, but it's always nicer when Tom is here. So I'm hoping that he'll get back into a regular schedule. This show, Energy Week, number 571, is being recorded on the 2nd of May, 2024. It covers the dates April 25th to May 1st. And for anybody who's not accustomed to it, I should say, it is it's a show covering material from a news aggregation site, my news aggregation site, which is called geoharvey.com. And that site I post usually by 9 o'clock every morning, most often sometime around 8. And it's a news aggregation relating to energy and climate change. There's usually about 15 articles referenced there. Each one has a title, a synopsis, and a link to the original. If you go to the site, you'll be able to find the links to the sources of these articles. But there's also, for people who are seeing this on a computer, as I suppose most people are, scrolling down on the screen, you can find links to, one of them is a news site that Tom and I have used to arrange the show so that we could get ready for it. And that has just the articles that are that relate to this show, 21 of them. And the other thing is a document that contains all of the material at that site. So for the week. So you can download the document or you can go to the site. Anyway, we're starting with an article from Scientific American, and we have a picture here of solar PVs. These, I believe, are in California. And the title for this article is "A Golden Age of Renewables is Beginning and California is Leading the Way." We'll see more about California in the show. California has had a record-breaking string of days in which the combined generation of renewable sources has exceeded demand on the main electric grid for anywhere from 15 minutes to 9.25 hours per day. The implications are spectacular. Now, what this is saying is that with the buildup in renewable energy in California, renewable energy is getting to a point where it is pushing other sources of energy off the grid. That was a decision that was made out there, that renewable energy would be prioritized over other sources. And that has implications. For example, I don't know how they deal with a nuclear power plant. Diablo Canyon is still running. It's the only plant in California, nuclear plant that is, but they're trying to keep it running into the future as they transition to renewables. The problem is nuclear power plants don't ramp up and down easily, and it takes days. I see this happen regularly, especially during the spring and fall, when power plants are being having when they're being refueled, they have to be shut off for the refueling, and then they have to be turned on. And turning on a nuclear power plant that has just been refueled can take over a week, because this is not a tea kettle where you turn the gas on and the thing's whistling at you 5 minutes later. This is a big pot, and it takes a lot of energy to get it going. Anyway, California is leading the United States in renewable energy. There are other states that are very close, believe it or not. One of them is Minnesota, believe it or not, but we'll get into that later. Okay, the next article we've got is from The Guardian, and we have a UK wind farm, a view from a UK wind farm. The title is "Share of Electricity Generated by Fossil Fuels in Great Britain Drops to Record Low." 15 years ago, gas and coal made up 75% of the power in the electric mix, while renewables were only 2%. Last year, only a third of Great Britain's electricity came from fossil fuels, and 40% was from renewables. There are times when over 90% is from renewables. Again, the renewables are beginning to throw other sources of electricity off the grid. The UK has a fair amount of nuclear power plants, fair number of nuclear power plants running. Again, I'm not sure what they do with those plants when the renewable electricity is displacing them. They've got to do something with the electricity. I'm not sure what it is. I should find that out, shouldn't I? Tell you all. Okay, we have an article from Renews and a picture of a offshore wind turbine. The title here is U.S. unveils 5-year offshore leasing plan. U.S. Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland announced a new 5-year schedule of offshore wind leasing rounds with up to 12 lease sales by 2028. 4 lease sales in the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, Pacific, and near U.S. territories will take place this year. 1 each in 2025 and 2026, 2 in 2027, and 4 in 2028. So what's happening here is that normally in the past, when there was a bid that was a bidding was being announced for an offshore wind farm, it would be put out to bid, and the bidding would be done, and the work would be done on that. But it would be put out to bid when the bidding was ready. Here, what we're doing is we're seeing that under Deb Haaland, the Interior Department is putting out these offshore wind farm leasing bidding on a very predictable schedule that sees things 5 years in advance. So this is makes it easier for the people who put in wind farms to plan where they're going. And that, of course, makes things a lot easier for them, and makes things a lot easier for everybody, in fact, who's involved in it. We have a picture coming up now of a solar plant in Gujarat. And Gujarat, of course, is a state in India. This comes from PV Magazine International, and the title is "India's New Solar Installations Hit 6.2 Gigawatts in March." And this, I think, is a stunning title. Rystad Energy figures show India's monthly installations of renewable energy surged to a record 7.1 gigawatts in March of 2024. That is 7.1 gigawatts of renewable energy installed in March, just March. The previous record was 3.1 gigawatts set in March of 2022. So this is over twice the previous record for the installation of renewable energy. As I said, it's stunning. You know, it's like a guy runs a mile in 4 minutes, that sets a record. The next guy runs the mile in 2 minutes. No, that's not going to happen. But in this thing, they went from a record of 3.5 gigawatts in 2022 to 7.1 gigawatts in 2024, and that is just the month of March. More than 6.2 gigawatts of the March 2024 total was solar capacity. That's over 80% of the 7.5 gigawatts installed in all of 2023. So, renewable energy, 2023, India, they had 7.5 gigawatts installed for the whole year. We had 7.1 installed for March of 2024. That's not the beginning, it's not the end. It'll be interesting to see what records are set in India this year. Anyway, let's see what else we've got here. I just lost my cursor, so. Yes, indeed. We have a picture of a ship. This is a weird looking ship. The bow of this ship is on the right, and that means that it looks like it's probably pushing through the water like a bathtub would be, with a blunt bow. No, the bow is not blunt. If you look at the bottom of the bow section, you can see that the bow where it hits the water is actually sharp like it is in other ships. It's just that the hull is wide above the bow, kind of like you would see on an aircraft carrier or something like that. This ship is carrying cars. This is the BYD Explorer #1. The article is from Clean Technica. The title is "Electric Cars Are the Spawn of the Devil." An ex-CIA dude tells Faux News. I knew a guy once who had a dog named Faux Pa. Well, let's go to the news here. If you are wondering where all the negativity about electric cars is coming from, you probably don't spend every moment of the day filling your cranial cavity with a detritus from Faux News. If you did, you would be treated to a constant barrage of stunningly stupid nonsense. I have been keeping my blog for years, as you know, and I started the blog on the 2nd of June 2012, so it's been almost 14 years now, 12 years now. And the show has been going since November of 2013. I've been seeing a lot of news. Initially, I had to figure out why it was that there were so different things said about solar energy, wind energy, electric cars, anything you want to name. There were very different things said. And it was really kind of disconcerting. And then I realized there were two kinds of news articles that would appear. One of them would say one thing, another would say another. Give you an example. Some are articles that were appearing as early as 2013, but certainly by 2016 it was very common, said that the cost of electricity from solar power was dropping very quickly, and it would soon be displacing coal and to some extent natural gas. And at the same time, there were other articles that were appearing in other magazines that said solar power was incredibly expensive and only a dolt would be involved in putting it in. So how do you reconcile those? And one of the things that I noticed was that the articles that had the lower amount, the lower cost for solar, were sometimes given good reference citations. But the ones that had the higher ratings did not, almost never did. Another thing was follow the money. The lower cost solar articles came from all over the place. The upper cost, the ones that had higher prices involved were being paid for by organizations that were, well, Rupert Murdoch, Koch brothers, the various organizations associated with the Mercer family, those kinds of things was where I was seeing things. One day, I got a citation from one of those sources where it said things were too expensive, and I decided that I would find it. Now, in this particular case, the citation was really, really bad. It said that the cost of solar power was some figure in cents and tenths and hundredths of a cent per kilowatt hour, but it cited the United States Department of Energy. I took it for its word. I said, okay, they probably have that at the Department of Energy. But the citation did not say anything about the specific page, the specific publication, the specific date. So I did a little research looking for that figure, and I came up with it. In a world where the price of solar power had demonstrably dropped by an average of 13% per year for 30 years plus, that citation was from a source that was 5 years old. That means that the citation was probably off by close to 50%. And the person who made that citation should have known that, and in fact may have known that and wanted a higher figure. And I'm just telling you, this thing about electric cars being the spawn of the devil and so forth is just a continuation of the same thing. There's a lot of bad information out there, and if you know how to spot it, you can. Okay, I'm going to go on. Our next article is from Yahoo, and this is a picture of German wind turbines. The title is Renewable Energies Covered 56% of Germany's Q1 electricity consumption. Renewable energy covered about 56% of electricity consumption in Germany in the first quarter of 2024, according to, here we are with citations, according to projections by the Center of Solar Energy and Hydrogen Research Baden-Württemberg and the German Association for Energy and Water Industries. Now, that citation is legitimate. I think it was 56%. In fact, I've seen other articles say the same thing, 56%, acquiring the information from a different study. So I think this is probably correct. Germany has shut down all of its nuclear plants. It is shutting down all of its coal plants. It is shutting down other plants as it goes on. It's up to 56% renewable energy. A lot of this sudden increase was because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which turned out to be economically not good at all for Russia. So anyway, we are up to Saturday, April 27th. We have another picture of wind turbines. In this particular case, the wind turbines are from the United States Department of Energy. And this is from a publication called emagazine.com. The title is Wind Repowering, Putting Old Wind Turbines Back into Service. Wind repowering aims to revamp old turbines with more efficient components or put in completely new state-of-the-art turbines. These new components and units can reduce noise, more efficiently power a turbine, and deliver a higher overall energy output. Now, there are a bunch of other things that are relative to this. By the way, just in case you're interested in looking and seeing how big these wind turbines are, those trees that you see there in this picture are not saplings. And as a matter of fact, about a third of the way over from the right toward the left, close to the bottom, you can see a truck on the road. It doesn't look very big. And the reason it doesn't look very big is because those wind turbines are huge. This particular article is about what happens when wind turbines get old. The masts don't break down easily. The generators can break down. The blades do break down. And so there is an industry that is coming into play in which old turbine parts or entire old turbines can be put up on the original masts to repower the wind turbines in a wind farm. Okay, our next article, this is a weird picture. It shows ship tracks. Now, what you see on the right there is the west coast of North America. In the top portion, you see Vancouver Island and Puget Sound, and the picture goes, I think, almost all the way down to San Francisco, but not quite all the way down. And off this picture at sea, you can see what are the equivalent of contrails by aircraft, but they are coming from ships. This is from ABC News. This is American Broadcast Company. The title is Controversial Methods to Cool the Earth by Reflecting Sunlight Gain Traction as Global Temperatures Rise. We've had big rises in global temperatures over the last year, and every month sets a new record, which is not good. Now they're starting to panic, and what you're seeing here, these funny trail-like clouds that are off at sea, are not, I don't believe, intentional from ships. But, well, let me read the synopsis. As the impacts of climate change intensify and become more severe, relatively untouched ideas are gaining momentum as potential short-term solutions to lower the Earth's temperature. One of them is solar geoengineering. And I want to tell you, I'm not so sure about solar geoengineering. There are reasons to think that maybe it would work, and I think there are no reasons to think that it wouldn't do a lot of damage. So the question is, are there better ways to do things? And I think the answer probably is we should find them. They're there. We should just find them, because this can be very destructive. What they're talking about doing is putting out into the atmosphere sulfur dioxide, which will reflect light off the atmosphere. Well, part of my problem with this is if it's going to reflect incoming solar radiation, it's also going to reflect outgoing geographical radiation back to the Earth. So it's going to act like a blanket. And I'm not so sure that it is going to improve our climate problems at all. But whatever it does, putting sulfur dioxide into the air, sulfur dioxide reacts with water. Rain is made of water. The sulfur dioxide in the air is going to react with the rain. That makes sulfurous acid. Sulfurous acid is not going to dissolve your skin, but it's going to dissolve things made of concrete and stuff like that. It's not good. This is what's called acid rain. I don't think we need acid rain. Anyway, we are going to our next article. This is from Euractiv, a picture of wind turbines. The title is Tripling Renewables. European G7 leaders need to turn words into action. Need to turn words into action. The COP28 goal means increasing global renewables capacity from under 4 terawatts at the end of 2022 to 11 terawatts by the end of 2030. So it has to be multiplied almost by 3. Ember's analysis. Ember is a company, an organization that does analysis, and it's considered to be pretty good. And Ember's analysis shows that collectively, G7 countries are only targeting doubling renewables by 2030. They need to triple it. And Ember is not the only organization saying this. We've got some problems, and I think we should be addressing them. Okay, our next item is we have a picture here of Doha, which is in Qatar. And this is from a publication called The Peninsula Qatar. Qatar seeks to generate 4 gigawatts of renewable power by 2030. Qatar General Electricity and Water Corporation has launched Qatar National Renewable Energy Strategy, which has a goal to increase renewable power generation to about 4 gigawatts by 2030 to cut its emissions. To do this, the Qatar National Renewable Energy Strategy coordinated with 22 key energy actors in the country. So they're actually getting pretty serious. Qatar is not a big country. For those who don't know, it's on the Persian Gulf. It's just not a big country. Okay, our next item has a picture that shows a broken levee in Pajaro, California. This is from ABC News, American Broadcast Company. Climate change has disproportionately impacted these vulnerable U.S. communities, experts say. Events in recent years show the disproportionate impacts of climate change on the poorest communities, which emit the least greenhouse gas. Extreme weather events are exacerbated by warming global temperatures. So basically what they're saying is the weather events that are extreme, which could be rain, drought, you name it, those weather events are being made worse by climate change, and that is something that we know about. So the experts are talking about specific vulnerable communities. Tom and I have talked about these coastal communities in Alaska, Louisiana, New England, California, you name it. They're all over the place. If you're on the sea, you're probably in a place where the sea level is rising. It isn't rising everywhere. I should point that out. For example, it isn't rising in Greenland. And the reason for that is because the ice in Greenland is melting, reducing the pressure on the Earth at Greenland. So the Earth is popping up a little bit, and climate change is actually causing the apparent ocean level to decline. Nevertheless, you know, it's good to be careful about these things and try to be knowledgeable about them. Next, we have a picture of Richard Nixon. This is from Clean Technica, and the title is, in 1971, the Nixon administration punted on a revolutionary climate study. A nonprofit research organization based at George Washington University has launched its Climate Change Transparency Project. Now, this is recently that this has happened. The National Security Archive released a briefing book that focuses on climate change discussions in the Nixon White House. So the new organization, which is at George Washington University, and which organized its Climate Change Transparency Project, is putting together this briefing book. And my guess is they're going to do this for every White House. They could have started before the Nixon White House. I don't know. Lyndon Johnson had been warned by climate scientists. Well, I don't know that they were climate scientists in those days. They might have been meteorologists. I don't, but he was warned that we were going to run into trouble with climate change. That was Lyndon Johnson. So we'll just have to see where all of this goes. But I think we're going to see a lot of ignorance being used to direct our actions. So our next item here, we're up to Monday, April 29th. Our next item shows an Ørsted wind turbine. This is from Innovation News Network. The title is Offshore Wind Energy Tender to Power Denmark's Entire Electricity Demand. Okay, Denmark has launched a major tender for offshore wind energy that could provide all of the country's electricity. Denmark announced an offshore wind tender that could award up to 10 gigawatts, more than enough for the nation's entire population. So basically what they're saying is, a lot of Denmark's electricity is already coming from renewables. A lot of countries, though, are taking action to generate more electricity from renewables than they could possibly use. And there are reasons to do that, not the least of which is, in the case of Paraguay, for example, Paraguay produces from renewable energy sources about 1,000% of the electricity amount of electricity that it uses. Now, it only uses 10% of that production. The rest of it is sold to Argentina and Brazil. So, when you hear of energy production from renewable energy that exceeds the amount that is used by the country, that explains it. And here we're seeing Denmark putting in a 10 gigawatt tender for renewable energy from offshore wind power. And we'll see what else they're going to be doing. This is, I think, good news. Anyway, our next item comes from Clean Technica. I have a picture here which I have titled Simple Explanation. That wasn't the title in Clean Technica. It didn't have a title. But it did say that the image came from an organization called We Don't Have Time. The title is your bank financing fossil fuel companies? This app lets you find out. We Don't Have Time is an organization whose mission is to wake us all from our reverie in which we assume that somewhere, someone will find a solution for global warming and save us from having to do much of anything to avoid a sixth extinction event. And what the article is talking about is the fact that banks are financing fossil fuels even today. It doesn't make sense to finance fossil fuels. You're financing something that's going to destroy you. I want to talk about this image, though. This image says $7 trillion were spent on fossil fuel subsidies in 2022. When I saw that, I really wondered, where are they getting that information from? I can't imagine that there was $7 trillion in subsidies for fossil fuels. And that, with the two arrows, shows moving the money to renewables. $4.5 trillion is needed for clean energy investment annually by 2030. And what I want to do here for just a second is explain the fact that both of these figures are deceptive. Yes, there is a lot of money being spent on subsidies for fossil fuels. I looked it up. There's different resources. One of them said it was about my recollection is $570 billion a year, which is a far cry from $7 trillion. Another one said over $700 billion a year. That's 10% of the amount that's shown. When they say $7 trillion is spent on fossil fuel subsidies, what they mean is all of the subsidies plus externalities. For example, if somebody gets emphysema or lung cancer or liver cancer or something else along those lines contracted from air pollution, the cost of that is part of the $7 trillion. If property is destroyed, such as a lake is destroyed by fossil fuels, The value of the lake is part of that $7 trillion. What's an example of a lake? Lake Champlain was destroyed by fossil fuels. Why do I say that? If you catch a record-breaking trout in Lake Champlain, don't eat it, because it's probably contaminated with mercury. Why is it contaminated with mercury? Because of power plants that weren't even in Vermont. Some of them may have been in New York, but they were also in Pennsylvania and Ohio, Indiana, Canada. And mercury fell from emissions from those power plants into the lake, and it's still there. All right, $4.5 trillion. What is the story with that? Well, the investment of $4.5 trillion ignores something, and that is the amount of cash that's needed for that investment. Some of it is going to come from the fact that we are not investing in new coal-burning power plants. And if we can stop those investments, it can come from not investing in new gas power plants and not investing in new nuclear power plants. And for those who think that nuclear power is clean, and we could sit down and talk about that for days, the fact is solar power with batteries backed up so that it is what is NextEra Energy calls near firm. So that solar power is going to produce electricity that is at least as reliable as nuclear. That's what near firm means, for its dispatching energy required at peak demand times. And it is going to be able to do it at under 4 cents per kilowatt hour, as opposed to new nuclear plants, which would be in excess of 10.5 cents. Why should we pay extra for nuclear? And if you want to get the data on that, you can go to the New England Coalition's website, necnp.org, and just scroll down until you see a colorful graph, because that graph accompanies an article that I wrote called "Why Should We Pay Extra for Nuclear?" And hopefully that will explain all of that. So I'm going to go on. Oh, here we go. This is a picture of an Aptera. If anybody wants to buy me a car, buy me an Aptera. Only, I don't know, I'm not exactly holding my breath that you'll be able to do that, because they aren't being made yet. This is from Clean Technica, and the title is "What's Going On with Aptera and the Emirates?" Jennifer Sensiba wrote this. It's no secret that Aptera has been seeking funding for production for years. Sadly, the company is not very open about what's going on with it. We can hope that Aptera finally found the investor or investors it was looking for. I want to see it do well, but we don't know. And, you know, as I said, if you want to buy me a car, don't buy me a car. Don't. I'm just kidding. Okay, we're up to Thursday, April 30th. I don't need a car, I walk. And here we've got a picture of offshore wind turbines. Let me get it up for you. There we go. And the picture of, this is from Renews. And the title for this article is "UK Accelerates Connections for 8 Gigawatts of Clean Energy Capacity." Electricity networks in England and Wales enabled the grid connection offer dates for nearly 8 gigawatts of clean energy projects to be brought forward. The Technical Limits program brought connection dates of over 200 projects forward by up to 10 years, and their capacity totals 7.8 gigawatts. This shows you that 7.8 gigawatts was not going anywhere. It was not being physically developed because of red tape, and that's why. So if you ever have problems where you're saying, why are we acting so slowly? That's one of the reasons. Okay, our next item, we have a picture of a wind turbine. Let me put it up. And this is also from Renews. The title is New York Wraps Up Latest Renewables Tender. NYSERDA, New York State Energy, I forget. Anyway, it's the grand and glorious renewable energy pusher in New York State. NYSERDA has concluded New York State's 7th annual solicitation for onshore renewable energy projects. It has provisionally awarded 24 projects to support the continued development of large-scale onshore wind and solar resources toward achievement of New York's Climate Act goals. I think that basically says what it's all about. Our next picture uses the same colors. How remarkable. This is from Eco Generation. That's a picture of the Sydney Opera House. And I don't know if that's sundown or sunrise, but the title of the article is Australia's Energy Crisis Looms. A report from the Grattan Institute says Australia must take immediate action to reform its national energy market to avoid energy crisis. The report warns that the current national electricity market is ill-equipped to handle the rapid transmission away from coal power and towards renewable energy sources. And I will tell you, I think the same thing is true in the United States. We have problems that we've got to deal with. The problem with the problem in a nutshell is we developed a paradigm for electricity, and the paradigm was based on baseload power. Baseload power, you look at a grid and you say, how much power is the demand going to be at its lowest? Because you've got to have something that is very cheap to supply power, and the cheapest electricity is going to come from baseload plants. The reason for this is because the baseload plants are not designed to ramp up or down quickly. So when the demand changes, you want to have your baseload plants just producing power constantly at the same level. That means they don't have to have all the bells and whistles that are required to change, to follow the demand. So their electricity is going to be the cheapest that is available for the date, which this is before solar panels became sources of cheap electricity. Now, the demand goes up and down, so baseload power cannot supply an entire grid all the time. In fact, it would rarely supply the grid with just baseload power. Baseload power cannot do that. Over a period of time, it cannot supply the grid. Why? Well, the fact that cheap electricity has a drawback, and the drawback is it's entirely inflexible. You can only output for baseload plants a specific level of electricity. But the grid is constantly changing, and the trick to the grid is you want the source of electricity that you're using to be the same as the demand. So the trick with baseload power is going to be that there has to be some other power source, electricity source, that will go up and down, adjust to the demand. And that's going to be load following plants, it's going to be peaker plants, it's going to be hydro plants, which can kind of be used as baseload plants, but they can go up and down with the demand pretty effectively if within a time frame of 15 minutes. And in the old days, what they did was with the demand was they would have the speed, the number of cycles per second of the electricity change. So if there was just a little bit that you needed, you could increase or decrease the number of cycles per second that would go to the homes. And in effect, what you were doing was decreasing the voltage. And you know, this was a big deal. People had to come up with weird ways to follow the load. Now, today we have various additional sources of electricity, solar and wind. Hydropower has been around for a long time, but we're starting to get geothermal power online. There are other sources of renewable electricity and batteries. One of the big advantages of batteries is that if your batteries are sized to give you electricity at the rate that is needed, you can change the output of the batteries instantly. So you can have where it might have taken 10 minutes or 15 minutes to change the load, change the output of plants to follow the load in the old days. Now you can do it so fast that it happens in less than one cycle of the 60 cycles per second for alternating current. Obviously, solar and wind and batteries, along with these other sources, is going to produce better, and according to NextEra Energy, going back to that thing that I mentioned earlier that you can find at New England Coalition, you can also find it by looking for NextEra Energy. Oh, what was it? It appeared in June of 2022, and it was a release that went to stockholders. It's a PDF file, and it's 120 some odd pages at least long. I don't remember the exact number. It might have been 140, but it explains why they're doing what they're doing, and that means why they're putting all of their money into solar, wind, and batteries, and nothing at all into certainly not coal. We've had no coal in this country for years, but natural gas and nuclear. They're not even investing in small modular reactors, which are, we see bad news about small modular reactors sometimes. And the thought about them is that they are not going to be more reliable, they're not going to be cheaper, and they're not going to come online all that much faster than the big reactors that we've been accustomed to. Anyway, there is that. So we are up to Wednesday, the 1st of May, and we have a picture of a train. This is Eurostar train. Doesn't say where that is, but it's a Eurostar image, and I think that that looks like a computer-generated image to me. They do pretty well. It does not look like a photograph to me, to my eyes. This is from Rail Business Daily. Eurostar pledges to power trains with 100% renewable electricity by 2030. Eurostar, the high-speed rail network in the northwest of Europe, announced a goal of enabling 30 million passengers to travel sustainably while lowering carbon emissions. Eurostar's objective is to power its trains using 100% renewable energy by 2030. So that's what they're talking about doing. Again, the demand in this particular case is going to be pretty much known well in advance, because the schedules of these trains are known well in advance. Renewable energy, it comes from onshore wind, offshore wind, solar, a few other sources, but batteries. And those big batteries are turning out to be important in the changeover from fuels to fuel-free electricity. Okay, our next image, this is a Natron Energy Blue Pack, Natron. This is from Clean Technica. The article is titled Babai Conflict Minerals, U.S. Gets First Sodium-Ion Battery Factory. This is not about a sodium-ion battery. It's about a sodium-ion battery factory which has gone into production. In the latest sodium-ion battery news, the U.S. startup Natron Energy staked out its claim to be the first commercial-scale production of a sodium-ion battery in the United States when it hit the start button on its factory in Michigan. It plans to make 600 megawatts of sodium batteries per year. Okay, the deal here is lithium. Lithium is not exactly rare. It's all over the place, but getting that lithium for the batteries and also certain other things for the batteries have to be taken into account. It's not just lithium, it's the minerals that go with it. In the lithium-ion batteries, we're talking about cobalt, but we're also talking about other things. Now, there's lithium ferrophosphate batteries. They have iron in addition to the lithium. What other, aside from phosphates, what other materials they have, I don't know. These batteries, however, are very similar to lithium batteries, except they don't have lithium. To get lithium, you have to locate it, mine it, refine it, extract it, do whatever you're doing. In this particular case, we're talking about sodium. And the thing that makes the ocean salty is mostly sodium chloride. Sodium is a very cheap material, which is really easy to get. So that's one of the things about sodium-ion batteries. Sodium-ion batteries have ions in them, sodium ions, as opposed to lithium ions. The sodium ions are much bigger than lithium ions. That's one of the things that makes lithium ions attractive. Nevertheless, and the result of that is that the sodium-ion batteries have to be bigger too, the batteries themselves. Nevertheless, this makes a big difference because the conflict materials are not there. And that means that you've got another battery source and you can use it for all kinds of things. We don't know whether batteries of this type are going to be used in vehicles because they are big. My guess is that they could be used in tractor trailers because tractor trailers don't mind being big. Nevertheless, there it is. And we have one more item, and that is from MSN. I find MSN a little bit difficult because there are certain publications that produce things that are just trivial. And I feel like some of the stuff that I see at MSN is not really well written, not really serious. There are a couple of publications that produce a lot of stuff, and I generally don't look when I'm looking for things for my blog. I very often don't even bother looking at what they've got because it just isn't very good. But this particular article is important. This is a picture of wind turbines in California. Let me put it up so you can see it. There you go. The title is Data Reveals Big Milestones for California's Wind, Water, and Solar Power Production. According to data from I told you we were going to get back to California. According to data from the California Independent System Operators website, during the past 52 days, wind, water, and solar have provided an average of 61.5% of the state's electricity demand. And renewables meet 100% of demand for at least 15 minutes in each of 44 days. And in some of those days, it went up to a much larger figure. Now, this basically is the same article. It's an article on the same thing that we started with, except that in this case, it's updated so that it's got newer information about more days. And what we're seeing here is the transition from fossil fuels and, to a degree, nuclear. That transition is playing out in California and in other places. And we're seeing that happen. And, you know, I don't know how long that transition is going to take, but the sense that I have is that we're going to be seeing California going through periods when I don't know how long it's going to take for California to get to a point where it actually has 100% of its demand for electricity covered by renewables. That day, I can't predict when that'll happen, but I can predict it will happen on a Sunday because demand is lower on Sunday. So it's easier on Sunday to get 100% of the demand. Nevertheless, we're going to get to 100% of demand coming from something other than fossil fuels, I think, relatively quickly. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think it will happen. So there we are for the week, and we have a final slide which says, have a totally terrific week. It's time for us to end the show. I'm sorry Tom is not here. I'm going to wave goodbye. Tom would wave goodbye, and so maybe his cat is waving goodbye. I don't know. But we'll hope that Tom will be with us next week. And I'm going to try to remember to call him the day before to remind him. And so I'm going to tell you what Tom would tell you, which is, y'all come back now. You hear? Yeah. Please come back. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoy our next show. Have a good week. Bye.